This woman sneaked into the police station posing as a police officer, looking at all the evidence of his own crime on the wall. A strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. And the other side. The police are in the locked position, found her hiding place. But in addition to the countless human-shaped graffiti on the wall, got nothing. Black brother immediately realized maybe the killer brought them here on purpose. Sure enough, when they got back to the police station, evidence in the conference room has been spelled into a human shape. Brother High doesn't understand what the killer's purpose is. When Sarah returns to her desk, discover photos of Lisa's manslaughter of civilians are on the table. He immediately went through the manslaughter file. It turns out that the pattern on the back of the civilian neck is exactly the same as Helena's dagger. It turns out that this civilian belongs to the same organization as Helena. In other words, Lisa was not a manslaughter at the time, but in self-defense. Then Helena called again. She asked to meet at night and sent Sarah an address and a video. Sarah wrote down the address and opened the video.
Murdered Margaret Chen. It wasn't an accident. I shot her on purpose.
Sarah rushed to the appointed place, and he just left. Black brother is in his notepad. Found that address. After comparison, it was found that it's the address of the manslaughter of civilians. Brother High rushed over immediately. Sarah had already met Helena. I learned from her that she was indeed controlled by an organization and told her again and again that she was the true nature of the clone. That's why she follows orders to destroy other clones. Helena has been brainwashed since childhood. It has long since become a tool for killing. While talking, the Black brother has arrived. Sarah finally decided to let Helena go. Things are getting more complicated. Sarah is in danger of revealing her identity at any time, so she quit her job as a police officer. And the other side, a pair of hands with rings held Helena's hair. The mysterious man treated Helena's wound. When Helena woke up, she called him Thomas. Sarah is taking a shower when she gets home. The door lock was suddenly turned. Someone snuck into her room. The woman is taking a bath. Turn the door lock slowly. A pair of big feet entered the room. Someone came in and looked around the room. Moved slowly towards the bathroom. And then the woman in the bathroom has disappeared. In confusion, the woman holds her nails and appears from behind. It turned out that it was his boyfriend Paul who came. When sleeping at night, Paul suddenly offered to fly away with him. He says he hates his current job, and tired Sarah wants to talk in the morning. After falling asleep, I had a strange dream, dreaming of being tied to a bed. He's full of tubes. It's like an experiment. The next morning, when I wake up to brush my teeth, I actually spit out a strange thing from my stomach. She remembered that dream. Go check the arm now. I found a pinhole. Paul talked to her again about the elopement. At this time, Sarah was not in the mood to pay attention at all. Excuses to go out to get some air and go out of the house. And he immediately contacted science, told her about his discoveries and dreams. Science recognized at a glance that it was the electrodes of a brainwave machine. It can be used to monitor the electrical activity of the brain. So it's probably not Sarah's dream. It's memory. The people immediately suspected Paul, because only Paul was by her side last night. Since they're all experimental subjects, then someone must be watching them, and can do these. Most likely someone close to you. Speaking of which, the coach also suspected his husband. And just then, the IT guy from the police station called. Asked Sarah to return the borrowed surveillance equipment. Sarah speculates that there is a possibility. That's Lisa for surveillance and investigation of Paul. Called surveillance equipment from within the police station. If surveillance equipment is found, maybe you'll find something. At the same time, the coach's husband, Fatty, received a mysterious phone call and rummaging in the coach's room looking for something. The coach who happened to bump into him asked him what he was looking for. The fat man said in a panic that he was looking for scissors. After he left, the coach found the scissors lying on the table. Here, Sarah and Faisai go back to Lisa's place to find it. As a result, the monitoring device was not found, but found a pistol and some photos of Paul. It can be seen that Paul used to be a soldier. The last two were in the trunk of the car. Found surveillance equipment. To verify Paul's identity, Sarah used the guise of delivering meals, the company where Paul works. It turned out to be just an empty hall inside. And this woman comes up to me, said Paul was in a meeting. She led Sarah into the inner room. Before Paul comes back, Sarah quickly, in his office, installed monitoring equipment. And when Paul comes back, when the two hugged, they suddenly asked Sarah, why is the scar on her neck gone? the man was surprised to find the scar on his girlfriend's neck for many years disappeared inexplicably. When he asked his girlfriend said maybe it disappeared after using some kind of lotion. Then he left in a hurry. Lao Wo immediately turned on the computer, checked out Lisa's previous videos. After repeated confirmation, seems to understand something. The other side, the coach found the fat man with a suitcase, sneaked into the basement. So after he left, the coach goes into the basement to find, after some searching, finally found the box. And just as she was about to hacksaw the lock open, the fat man just came home. So he simply asked the fat man directly, what's in it? And let him open the box himself. I didn't expect the fat man to be uncharacteristically. Said it was a personal item and refused to open it. He also snatched it directly and took away the suitcase. The coach has mixed feelings. So the next day, the coach went to a store to buy surveillance equipment. Just went out, but was entangled by a gangster with a broken arm. He kept shouting Sarah's name. Apparently, they took him for Sarah. She contacted Sarah as soon as she got out with anti-wolf spray. So this guy's name is Vic. It's Sarah's ex-boyfriend. Sarah ran out with the goods he shipped for the boss. As a result, he was hunted down by his boss every day. I thought after my last funeral, he thought that when he died, he would stop entangling. I didn't expect the trouble to come back. On the other side, Paul meets a mysterious man, and all of this has been overheard by Sarah. You can hear from their conversation. Paul was the one who was watching her, and he's already suspicious of Sarah. Then Paul called and asked to meet Sarah. Sarah had no idea how to meet him at this moment. I could only find an excuse to reject him. But then I got a message from him. It was Sarah picking up her daughter from school. And just then, ex-boyfriend Vic shows up at the door. Sarah was worried about her daughter, too lazy to explain to Vic. Take out 20,000 cash and throw him 15,000. Return his goods and pay 5,000 as compensation for him. But Vic didn't give up. I feel like I've sacrificed so much for Sarah over the years. Sarah of this run. 4 of his fingers were chopped off by the boss. But Sarah was tired of it. Live a messy life with him. I made a ruthless eviction order, but Vic had to take the money and leave. But before leaving, I still left a cruel word. I want to let Sarah go so easily. Sarah, who is worried about her daughter, decides to go to Paul immediately. And when she got home, Paul was already waiting there with a pistol in hand. The lovers each held a pistol, sitting opposite each other. The man suspects that the girlfriend in front of him is faking. The woman suspects that he is spying on her. Man asks woman, why did the scar on her neck suddenly disappear? Why did she suddenly resign after being dedicated to her job and loving her job? Why did you suddenly fall in love with rock and roll? The most outrageous thing is, she is infertile. I have an extra daughter for no reason. Faced with these questions, Sarah was powerless to argue. Under the pressure of Paul, just say things. Her girlfriend Lisa committed suicide by lying on the rails. She lied about being Lisa's twin sister. Fake her just to get her savings. It turns out that Paul suspects that she killed Lisa, but Sarah had to come clean.
Because you killed her.
What?
You're her monitor, aren't you?
What's that?
You observe her. You let people into her home. Like last night. Doctors came and medically examined her in her sleep. She knew.
As he spoke, he took out Lisa's suicide note and threw it in Paul's face. It turns out that Lisa is deeply in love with Paul, but accidentally no. Paul approached himself just to spy on her. Very sad. So I chose suicide. Her here. Paul no longer hides. It turns out that Paul didn't know it either. He's just following orders. The thing about human clothes, all he knows is the results of the medical test he secretly gave them to a man named Oliver. In addition to that, no nothing. See, can't ask for any information. Sarah made an excuse to take a shower without a sound. When Paul finds out, Sarah is long gone. And the other side, the coach found out through the surveillance of his stolen goods. While she was asleep, the fat man really slipped out in the middle of the night. So the next day, she asked where the fat man went in the middle of the night. As a result, the fat man never wanted to answer directly. See no results. So the coach grabbed a golf club.
Good?
Then she called Sarah to come and help. Then he struggled to get the fat man into the basement. And Paul had already installed a tracker on Sarah. He could see Sarah's movements clearly. What happens when a man sneaks out in the middle of the night? Ask the fat man who didn't tell the truth 3 times. Being treated first, and then by the coach. After calling Sarah, help the fat man put on the helmet, and then... When the fat man wakes up, already tied up. Coach, holding hot milk gun, began a gentle interrogation. As a result, the fat man was burned and the ghost cried and howled. Not only did he not confess, still full of confusion about the coach's behavior. Just then, Sarah has arrived, even though he is well informed. I was really taken aback by the coach's methods. There was a noise from upstairs. It turned out that I had an appointment with the neighbors today. It turned out to be a mess in the morning, forgotten by the coach. So he asked Sarah to pretend to be herself and continue to interrogate the fat man. Go upstairs to entertain guests by yourself, to say that Sarah's method still works. Under some guidance, the fat man told the truth. It turns out that I got up early in the middle of the night just to watch a 4 a.m. cricket match. On the other hand, Science was invited by best friend Delphine, attended a lecture, and Dr. Ritchie was up here talk a lot about the benefits of Genesis for human evolution. A bunch of bizarre advocates off stage. Seems to be the experimenter of his theory. At the same time, Faizai was also called over by Sarah. Play to his strengths, helping the coach with family gatherings, suspicion of husband, and a messy party. The coach was already slightly drunk because of his bad mood. At this time, after listening to Sarah explain why her husband secretly got up, the coach is even more devastated. It can be seen from the beginning. She pays special attention to family and children. And just now, I destroyed the family with my own hands. In the end, the coach got himself drunk. So Sarah decided to give her another hand. As a result, I brainwashed the fat man. How hard is it to be a housewife? It's all about the kids. The fat man who was tortured for half a day in the end. I thought I wasn't good enough. And Vic, who infiltrated Fizzy's room, learned where I went from his computer, soon followed to the coach's house. Sarah had no choice but to agree to meet in the bedroom. At this time, Paul, who had been tracking the salad, had also arrived. When he saw the coach lying on the sofa, I thought it was Lisa, but upon examination, there was no scar on her neck either. Then he thought it was Sarah. Then the fat man in the house made a noise. Paul went to check, but I saw the surveillance screen in the computer. Vic and Sarah are negotiating in the bedroom at the moment. Vic asked for an explanation, otherwise reveal all of Sarah's secrets. Then Paul opened the door and walked in, but as soon as he entered the door, he was threatened with a gun by Vic. So Paul suggested going outside and solving it alone. As soon as I opened the door, I met a bunch of neighbors everywhere. Sarah had to stay behind as a coach. Paul and Vic go first. It just arrived in the basement. Vic was backhanded by Paul. Under Paul's manipulation, tell me all about Sarah. And then Sarah comes along. It means that Vic doesn't really know anything. She would confess everything to him later. Finally convinced Paul to let Vic go. At night, Coach just wanted to apologize for the day. The fat man admitted his mistake first, that he had ignored her feelings. In fact, the box contains only letters from his first love, saying that he threw himself into the coach's arms and cried. And Sarah kept her promise, confessed everything to Paul, because he can feel it. Paul is someone who can help himself. The screen changes. A woman enters a room. It's Science's best friend, Delphine, and Dr. Ritchie of Genesis emerged from behind her. In a bar, the customers inside are waving their arms like demons. They rate Genesis fanatics. They can choose for themselves the direction you need to evolve, strengthen a part of the body, like the eyes of this beautiful woman. The reason why Faizai appeared here, it's because Sarah is worried about Paul's safety. Let him come over to spy on the news, because the owner of this creation-themed bar, it was Paul's boss, Oliver. Now he's interviewing Paul. Every detail of my contact with Sarah these days, and said someone was cleaning up the subjects of their experiment. It follows from this that it was another group that was after Sarah and the others. That is to say, there are two opposing groups are watching this closed program. One party is the verifier. The other party is the saboteur. After Paul came out, soon found Faizai, who was following him. Luckily, Sarah showed up in time. Faizai only escaped a fat beating. When he came back, Paul told Sarah everything. The conversation with Oliver. It can be seen that he's completely on Sarah's side. He asked Sarah if she knew anyone was cleaning them up. Sarah kept a secret from him about Helena. At this time, Helena has basically recovered. Thomas brainwashed him again. Said she was the true nature of the clone. Let her find the shepherd through the lamb. The boss behind the cloning experiment. On the other side, Oliver received a call. The other party said that they found out from Lisa's medical report. The current Lisa is no longer Lisa herself. And that's Rich, PhD, on the other end of the line. He told Oliver to find Sarah. So Oliver showed up at Sarah's house. He told Paul Lisa was no longer herself. Paul could only pretend not to know. As a result, Oliver was taken back to the bar, showed him a photo. Above Paul was bound and knelt on the ground. This seems to be some kind of handle on Paul. Oliver used him to threaten Paul to call Sarah, lure her out. But at the last minute, Paul is still desperate to remind Sarah.
They know you're not back. Run.
Sarah, on the other end of the line, was well aware of Paul's situation. He decided to rescue Paul, but I know I am no match for Oliver. So he contacted Helena, gave Oliver's name and address. He is the shepherd. After hanging up the phone, Sarah didn't wait for Helena. It's to explain Faye's eye. If she can't get out in 15 minutes, just call Black Brother. And he walked in. Oliver meets Sarah. Ask him why he kills the other clones. Sarah says she didn't do it herself, but by a blonde religious fanatic. Of course, Oliver wouldn't believe it and tell Dr. Rich on the phone he's got the cleaners. Dr. Ritchie told him to move quickly. He'll be there soon. And just as Sarah was being taken away, Helena has already touched it. Oliver noticed something was wrong from the surveillance. Hurry up and check it out. As a result, Sarah took off her hood, has become Helena. Looking at the confused Oliver.
I want to see that tail.
Now show me the tail. Slowly. That's good.
This man has a pig's tail. In this era of self-selecting local evolution, how much fake alcohol will make him choose a pig's tail? Helena hands up and falls because she wants to take it back to the master who opposes evolution. Sarah, who got away, hurried to save Paul. Faye's eye waiting outside. Seeing that the appointed time with Sarah has passed, he dialed Brother High's phone.
Dr. Bell.
I need to talk to you about Beth Childs.
Beth Childs? What about her?
I was told to call, shit, Christ. Wrong number.
Inexplicably called and hung up. Makes Brother High suspicious. The police have just discovered mineral corpses. The same DNA as the killer who broke into the house to heal his wound. And the final comparison results. But it pointed to Sarah, who committed suicide by lying on the rail. When the Black brother saw Sarah's picture, can't help but be surprised. She looks exactly like her partner Lisa. They immediately located Sarah's legal guardian, Mrs. Ace. Facing their inquiries, Mrs. Ace covered up the truth that Sarah was still alive, and she immediately went to Sarah. Shows that she doesn't care what Sarah is doing. But it must not involve Gillis' safety. Otherwise, he will never see his daughter again. To find out the truth, Sarah continues to use Lisa's identity to return to the police station. And on Brother High's side, there is a train of mysteries that needs to be solved. Therefore, the female colleague puts Sarah's photo in her hand. Sarah looks at her picture and pretends to be surprised. And when she's gone, Black Brother immediately put the photo into the bag. Let the assistant do the fingerprint comparison. And then they went back to the morgue. Found out when Sarah, the name and address of the body claimant. Little did they know they had just left. The morgue administrator informed Faye's Eye. It turned out that, because of a common hobby, the two have already become iron buddies. Sarah, who received the news, immediately packed up and ran away. It turned out that he just walked on the front foot. Brother High found the door. Although Faye's Eye, it was his sister Sarah who said that she was lying on the rails. But the Black brothers played a dirty trick. Pretend to leave, but called at the door that night. Faye's Eye called him. Confirmed that it was Faye's Eye who called and mentioned Lisa. Then he came to the platform where Lisa committed suicide, looked up and found the camera in the corner. The surveillance cameras just captured everything that happened at that time. Sarah's identity was completely exposed at the police station. At the same time, Delphini, in charge of surveillance science, peaked. Character structure diagram made by clones in scientific research and called the information of 8 people, all reported to Dr. Ricci. And the other side, Sarah met someone, her biological mother. Sarah herself felt that the complexion was a little off, but the woman told her, "I was ignorant when I was young, in pursuit of material things. Have done IVF surrogacy. Then I overheard the employer's conversation. Talk about making a baby that is not bound by tradition. She sensed that the baby in her womb might be in danger, and she snuck out and gave birth to twins. One was handed over to a welfare agency, Sarah, who was later adopted by Mrs. F. The other was sent to the monastery. That's Helena now. It turns out that Sarah and Helena are actually sisters. And just then, Black Brother arrived with the police. Sarah was taken back to the police station. Look at all the evidence in front of you. Sarah is powerless to argue. I confessed everything to Brother High. She just wants her life with her daughter to be undisturbed. On the other side, Dr. Richie finds the coach, convincing her to do 2 medical tests a year. It wouldn't he disturb her life and remove all the monitors around her. And Dr. Richie went back to science, convincing science to join them, continuing research on the genetic sequence of clones. Helena can't do anything to Sarah, completely annoyed Thomas, who controlled him, to punish her, put her in an iron cage. Sarah, on the other side through Dr. Richie, learned information about Thomas. Turns out he belongs to an extremist religious fanatic group. A few years ago, one of their spies infiltrated the project. The civilian who was shot by Lisa. He found Helena at the monastery and trained him to kill other clones. Helena in a cage. Finally hooked down the chair next to it through the belt. Successfully got my phone number and dialed Sarah's number.
You're the only one I can return to.
Sarah soon looked for the address and found Helena and successfully rescued her. Unfortunately, he was bumped into by Thomas, who came back. So the two of them worked together to subdue him in a cage. The next morning, a new day begins. Coach's neighbors start packing up and moving. The fat man said to give the coach a better husband, ready to start running.